Hi everyone, welcome to week one of our OpenTrails course. We are so super extremely excited to have such a great group of people here who are excited and energized and engaged about providing awesome trail data to visitors and making an awesome community of people who are excited about open data and being outside. My name is Lizzie. I will be the coordinator of this course, and I'm joined by several gentlemen who I will introduce here shortly. Throughout the course, if you have any questions at all, you can post them in Slack. I'll probably bug you about Slack several times throughout the course of the course. But feel free to ask questions at any time, and at the end of the course we will, or at the end of the webinar today, we will answer your questions on air here. If you're having any technical problems, put that into Slack as well, and Jeremy, Ryan, or Alan will be able to help you out with those technical problems. And without further ado, I'm going to open up the slide deck and we're going to get started. It is a real pleasure to do this. Like I said, I'm very, very excited. Okay, so welcome to the OpenTrails course, week number one. This is a photo of the Pacific Ocean from Point Bonita in Marin County, at the top of a lovely trail that takes you to some abandoned bunkers and such in that area. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're really, really excited. So what are we going to be doing here over the next few weeks? This is a workshop ultimately, and it is designed for a few things. Number one, it's designed for getting your agency's data into the OpenTrails specification. In the email that I sent to you earlier, whether it was yesterday or this morning, we provided a few links, and one of the links was to the actual data specification itself for the OpenTrails standard. If you are wanting to read more about that, that's where you'll read more about it, and we'll be referencing it multiple times throughout the course, so it's something that you're definitely going to get familiar with. We're also going to work on getting your data out to users and figuring out what is the best way to share, steward, and maintain your trail data using the OpenTrails format and tools that are designed to work with the OpenTrails format. Ultimately, the goal here is that we are working together to serve your park visitors better with data. And data can be really powerful, and most people these days are accessing information on the internet, whether web or mobile. So being able to provide information in a way that is accessible to the majority of people will aid in getting more people to come out and spend time outside in our lovely parks and open spaces. Parks for a long time have been really great at getting people excited about being outside through signage and through materials and just creating great experiences with information. And the goal with OpenTrails is to take that to the next level by utilizing the internet and data sharing via web and mobile. And again, we're so excited to have you here. This course is really about you. At any time throughout the course, feel free to reach out to us and let us know if you need anything. This is the second time this course has been taught, and we learned a lot through the first time, but we are still learning, and we want to make sure that it is as positive and beneficial for you as possible. So please reach out to us with anything that you may be curious about, have suggestions about, etc. Before we start, really get into things, make sure that you're signed into Slack. Um, this is what Slack looks like. You should see OpenTrails course. That is the basically the chat room or the channel that we're going to use throughout the course to communicate with each other. And it never sleeps, it's always there. So even if you wake up at 3 a.m. with a burning question about OpenTrails, feel free to hop into Slack and type it in, and one of us will get to it when we wake up and be able to answer any questions you have. You'll also find that it's a great resource for communicating with other people who are in the course, and I believe we will be inviting the crop of agencies and people who took the course before the last time it was offered to join us in that Slack channel, so they'll be able to answer questions based on their experiences as well. I know that it's probably super annoying that you have Slack in one window and this webinar in another, and we're sorry about that. We're still trying to figure out what the best presentation software format is, but for now, it might be a potential solution to have the webinar open in one window and Slack in another, and put them next to each other on the page. Or if you have multiple monitors, putting them on multiple monitors would be an ideal case. But again, sorry about that. It's something that we'll be able to work on and make better in the future. So why are we here? What are the goals of this course more concretely, and what do we hope to accomplish by the time that the 3 weeks are done? First of all, we will determine and understand the current status of your agency's data in preparing to publish in OpenTrails sustainably. You know, it's not a magical system, unfortunately. We can't take every data as is and pump it out into OpenTrails. Sometimes we have to do some data preparation, and we have to think about how we maintain and manage our data internally and how those internal processes can translate to publishing in OpenTrails with its specification. So that's something that we'll be able to figure out here in the first week. Secondly, we will understand the specification itself, why it exists, and how your data can fit into that. We all have different goals and different reasons why we're taking this course, and that's great because we have a massive, diverse range of parks and open spaces in the United States, and it's really exciting that there are so many options for people. But as such, there's different reasons that we want to publish data and why we want to have our data in OpenTrails. So we have to understand individually for each agency and group why we're publishing in OpenTrails and how we can best serve that need. Number 3, we will straight up help you convert your data to OpenTrails. I think that's a lot of the reason people are here, is to actually go through the technical part of that conversion, which we'll get to next week in more detail. But we're really excited to actually get some OpenTrails data sets out there. Fourth, we'll determine procedures and mechanisms for maintaining, updating, stewarding, and sharing your OpenTrails data. The awesome thing about open data is that it provides people opportunities to learn and to build cool tools for providing that information to others. But we want to make sure that the data that we're providing is updated. We want to make sure that we don't just publish once and then never again, so we have stale data sets that are sitting out in the ether. So we'll work on creating kind of procedures and structures internally for you to be able to keep that data maintained and updated. We will learn and understand what you and others can do with the data once you have it in OpenTrails. Publishing the data is great, but what's more exciting is when you can take it and put it into web maps and mobile applications and other cool tools that help people navigate our parks and open spaces better. So we'll learn about that ecosystem more fully. And finally, we will work together to contribute to an awesome community, share data and techniques with each other, and give lots and lots of high fives. Because what is better than getting a high five from someone that you work with or someone with whom you share an interest? The more high fives we can facilitate, the better. I consider that to be one of my personal key performance metrics, is how many high fives we can give. So the more high fives, the better. If you feel like it throughout the course, if you want to send us or post into Slack photos of you high-fiving people in your agency, we would really, really appreciate that. It would make us all very happy. So building community is definitely an integral part of this course and of the OpenTrails ecosystem. So hopefully that all sounds good, awesome, and we can kind of get started here with getting into stuff. So let's start with some introductions. This is me. Just kidding, that's a cat. This is me. My name is Lizzie Diamond. I am a fellow, 2014 fellow with Code for America, which is a nonprofit based in San Francisco. We do technology work with local government. Just about to end my fellowship here in a couple weeks. And I previously was a GIS analyst at the Oregon Department of Geology and Mineral Industries. And I have spent a lot of time with trail data and with GIS, and so I'm happy to help out throughout the course with any questions you have specifically related to ArcGIS data and understanding geographic data a little bit better. My email address is lizzie@trailheadlabs.com, and if you are a Twitter user, you can follow me on Twitter at Lizzie Diamond. Additionally, through the course, we have a few other people who are helping out and providing support. This course is brought to you through Trailhead Labs, and we're fortunate to have the CEO and CTO of Trailhead Labs here with us, helping to facilitate the course. So Ryan Bransford is the CEO of Trailhead Labs, and he is with you there on Slack. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind typing a little thing about yourself into Slack, maybe your favorite trail or something that you enjoy about the outdoors. Ryan can be reached Ryan@trailheadlabs.com and on Twitter at Ryan Bransford. We also have Jeremy Monteau, who's the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer at Trailhead Labs. And Jeremy, if you could do the same, just pop in there and say a little bit about yourself and how you got here and something that you love about being outside. Jeremy can be reached Jeremy@trailheadlabs.com and Jeremy Monteau on Twitter. And finally, we have Alan Williams, who I would consider to be the OpenTrails spirit guide. Alan was a Code for America fellow last year in 2013, and he worked with the folks in Summit County, Ohio, on a project that really kind of sparked and spearheaded the OpenTrails movement. There were many agencies that had trail data that wanted to work together, and he'll hop on and tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But he can be reached at alanw@codeforamerica.org and on Twitter at alanjosephwille with an I at the end. But this course is about you, so we are super excited for the diverse range of people who are here and doing the course, so I figure I would take some time to introduce everyone who is going to be in the course so we can all get to know each other. And when I call you out, your agency or your name, please type into Slack something interesting about your parks agency, your area, parks in your area, things that people might not know about your area. First of all, we have Sonoma County Regional Parks. Apologies in advance if I mispronounce your name. We have Steve, Mary, Meta, and Adam from Sonoma County Regional Parks here in the Northern Bay Area, and we're super excited to have them with us. We have Chris from Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, which is right smack dab in the middle of the state. And Chris, if you could take a moment and say something about yourself in Slack, that would be awesome. Maybe something cool about Wisconsin Rapids that we don't know. We also have Justin from Wood County, Wisconsin, who's here with us. Some Wisconsin Midwest love. I'm not sure if it's quite cold there yet, but I'm going to assume that it's November. It's probably pretty cold in Wisconsin already. So thanks for joining us, Wisconsinites. Right here in Marin County, California, we have Matt and Nick. Marin is just on the north-ish side of the Bay, here in the Bay Area. Matt and Nick, if you could tell us a little bit about Marin County parks, maybe something we didn't know before. We have Emmeline from Chico, California, home of one of my favorite places in the world, Upper Bidwell Park. Beautiful park, river, cool cliffs and rocks. And Emmeline is a professor at Chico State University. So please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Chico. From Greensboro, North Carolina, we have Madeline, who is the Assistant Trails and Greenways Director in Greensboro. And Madeline, please tell us a little bit about yourself and about trails in Greensboro. And then from Guilford County, North Carolina, which is also right there, we have Thomas and Katradia. And I personally have never been to Guilford County, so I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about the trails and parks that you have there. From the Bay Area Ridge Trail Council, we have Vern Smith. And I think maybe some folks might not know about what the Bay Area Ridge Trail is, so if you could pop into Slack and type in a little bit about that and tell us what that's about, that would be super awesome. And then finally, we have Kevin from the Intertwine Alliance in Portland, Oregon, which is where I used to live and very near and dear to my heart. There are some lovely hiking trails in Portland, really fun to get up and kind of see the city from a new perspective. That's our group here that we have taking the course. We're really, really excited. And I can't wait to get to know all of you better and for all of you to get to know each other better as well. Just take a moment to give some special love to our awesome sponsors for this course. In addition to Trailhead Labs, who we are putting on the course, we have Code for America, as I mentioned. Code for America is a nonprofit based in San Francisco. They are in many ways instrumental to the birthing of the OpenTrails specification, which Alan will get into here in a minute. And they're generously sponsoring part of this course. So to learn more about them, you can go to codeforamerica.org. Also, we are super pleased to have support from the National Recreation and Park Association, NRPA. I am sure some of you are familiar with their ProRAGIS standard for trail data that has been really instrumental in changing the way we manage parks and trails and stewardship of data in the digital realm throughout the country. So you can learn more about NRPA at nrpa.org. Oh, and by the way, are you on Slack yet? If you haven't popped into Slack yet, now would be a good time to hop on before we start getting into the meat and potatoes of, if you will, of the course today. So make sure that you hop on there, and if you're having any trouble with that, send an email to myself and Ryan and Jeremy, and we can help you get on Slack if you're having any technical problems with that. So without further ado, let's get started talking about OpenTrails. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of OpenTrails, and here in a second I'm going to hand it over to Alan Williams, who is our lovely spirit guide and has agreed to talk to us a little bit about OpenTrails history. If you're curious about more beyond what he has to say, a lot of the information that he's going to talk about and more can be probably also, you won't get his anecdotes as much, but you can find out more about the history of OpenTrails in the specification itself, and also in the OpenTrails guidebook, and you have links to both of those in the email that you should have received yesterday or this morning. Alan, how do you feel about hopping on and talking a little bit about the history of OpenTrails?
I feel good about it. If you'll drive the slides, I'll tell the stories.
Sounds good.
Okay, so why was the Open Trails specification created in the first place? Well, it dates back to my time as a Code for America fellow, and I had the privilege of working with a coalition of public land managers in Northeast Ohio, specifically the Cuyahoga Valley, which is a beautiful area below Cleveland that sits between Cleveland and Akron, Ohio, and the Cuyahoga River runs through it. And the valley itself is managed by multiple different jurisdictions. There's a national park, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and then there are two sort of subdivisions of the state of Ohio, one in Cleveland, one in Summit County. There are also a handful of municipalities that manage public land. And there was a nonprofit that managed a spinal trail that sort of connects all of these public lands. And so they have a big trail network that is actually host to some 8 million annual visits every year. And those visitors don't perceive their experience in the Cuyahoga Valley as traveling between different official places. They just experience it as a beautiful part of the region they call home. But if they want to get information about how to navigate the trail network, if they wanted to get information about particular places where they could get on the trail network or sites to see, they would have to visit many different websites. And those websites rarely had, in fact, none of them had any interactivity. So people were doing what they could, but it was very frustrating for trail visitors to get a good sense of where they were going, how they could get around, and all there was to see. So I'll ask you to go to the next slide, Lizzie.
Oh, gosh, sorry.
How did it get to this point? So we did this in Ohio. It was version 0.123 and 4 of the specification. We're just among this group of 5 or 6 agencies in Ohio, and then we started telling the story. We gave a presentation at the Code for America Summit at the end of 2013, and we introduced the work to a lot of people, and we got a lot of interest from around the country of jurisdictions, agencies, departments facing the exact same issue. It turns out that, as the conservation movement bloomed, we tried to acquire and protect land in any way we could, whether that was a land trust or a city or county government, state government, or a federal agency. And as a result, all around the country, there are these adjacent jurisdictions that sit next to each other that are trying to serve the same visitors. So we started seeking input from all of these people. We sought input about the specification from major consumer technology companies like the Google Maps team, AllTrails, Strava. We had nonprofit partners weigh in on the specification to represent their members and the people that they care about. People like Green Info Network, the NRPA, and the Trust for Public Land. And we also really tried to get the perspective of technologists that wanted to work with trail data, that wanted to make interactive trail maps, that wanted to improve the experience for visitors before and during their visits. And that includes folks like Ryan and Jeremy at Trailhead Labs. It includes Stamen, a design studio here in the Bay Area, and it includes a number of independent developers. But most importantly, it includes Esri. Esri is the main technology vendor for parks and public lands across the country, and so we made a point to develop this specification in close partnership with Esri to make sure that it's something that really served people's existing technology and workflow. And then I think on the last slide about OpenTrails history, where we are today, we went through this big request for public comment period. We had a community organizing effort where we really gathered people from the conservation world and the geospatial technology world, convened them, and set narrow goals to serve visitors together as governments and as agencies. In July, we announced a final version 1.0 of the specification at Esri's user conference. In August, we ran our first course. We really road tested the specification with a group of a dozen governments from around the country. And we actually made an improvement to get us to a version 1.1 of the spec. We've seen a mobile app be approved by the App Store, the Apple App Store. The Trailhead Labs gentlemen have a developer platform for managing and publishing trails. Code for America has produced some tooling to assist people with conversion of the data from shapefile formats. We're beginning to see the ecosystem really take root. That's where we are today. And so we're really excited to have you all come in at this phase of stability and maturity and run with OpenTrails for your visitors.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alan, for giving us that history. As Alan mentioned, the idea behind this is it's a common data format. You know, in Ohio, they had the issue of these different agencies trying to work together, and so OpenTrails provides a common data format, and that also enables governments. It's a web-ready format that enables governments to build beautiful and useful web maps and mobile applications of the trails that exist in their jurisdictions. Thanks again, Alan, for getting us up to speed up to where we are today. As Alan mentioned, it was built with guidance from an amazing community of people. He mentioned all of these, but I'll just say it again. Esri, NRPA, Trust for Public Land, Stamen Design, Strava, AllTrails, Trailhead Labs, Green Info Network, U.S. Protected Lands Database Group, Code for America, the OpenStreetMap U.S. Board, and the National Park Service and Forest Service staff. This really is an amazing group of people, and this standard wouldn't be where it is without them. So OpenTrails is designed for a few specific purposes that have guided its development and helped to make some decisions about where it should go. Firstly, it's designed to help create maps for visitors. We have here in the background from the Intertwine Alliance a web map on their website where you can learn about trails via a web interface, and that is a very valuable thing for trail visitors or park visitors. It's designed for government and steward publishers. It's specifically crafted with your needs in mind as the people who are managing and maintaining your trail data. Again, it's made for use in web and mobile applications, which has helped influence some of the decisions that were made about the data and how the format was going to be structured. Here in the background we see Outer Spatial, which we'll talk about a little more in the coming weeks, but is an awesome way that we can take this data that we are collecting and publishing and make it available to our users and trail goers. It's focused on the aggregation of multiple data sets. If you are, if you're multiple agencies and multiple jurisdictions in your area, OpenTrails is a common format that everyone can use interoperably. And passively, the standard exists to help import data into OpenStreetMap. There are some decisions that have been made specifically to inside of the specification for getting data into OpenStreetMap, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, but I can give right now a 30-second-ish introduction to OpenStreetMap for the folks who haven't experienced it before. OpenStreetMap is a community-supported project to map the world. People call it the Wikipedia of maps. Anybody can go in and edit and provide data. And there are a lot of applications that rely on it. Back here we see Craigslist. The Craigslist maps are actually based on OpenStreetMap data, and there are a lot of routing applications and a variety of other cool projects that rely on OpenStreetMap data. So OpenTrails and OpenStreetMaps, therefore, are like totally best friends, and they high five all the time. So this is just a thing to note about the specification and some of the decisions that were made about it, which we will see here in a minute as we walk through the OpenTrails specification. Hooray! It's the part you all have been waiting for. Again, the goal is to maintain and provide data in service to visitors and trailgoers. The spec was made with this in mind. We all manage data internally for different purposes, and ProRagus from the NRPA is a great model for managing trail data internally. And the goal of the OpenTrails standard is to manage data in a way that is beneficial and useful for the people who are coming to visit the trails themselves. So it's made with that in mind. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the specification. There are 5 different data sets that make up the specification, and each of them has its own purpose. And so we'll go through them quickly, and then we'll dive deep into each one. The first file is a CSV, comma-separated value file, non-spatial data of stewards. And stewards are organizations that serve as the primary point of contact for inquiries about trails and trailheads. Basically, anyone who is involved in trail management or stewardship will end up in this stewards.csv file, and we'll poke into a little bit more of what's included in that file here in a minute. The second file is a trail segments file, and the trail segments is a line feature file that contains physical segments of trails, and then typically you'll have multiple segments of trail that make up a named trail. And this decision was made to have segments and named trails separately to accommodate sections of trail that maybe belong to more than one named trail, but also, oh gosh, excuse me, one second. Sorry. So yes, it's physical segments of trail, and multiple segments will make up a named trail. The named trails are a list of named trails as defined by park agencies. And different agencies have different conventions for naming their trails, and each named trail will have a series of trail segments that make up that named trail. So those 2 data sets are related to each other. And again, we'll go deeper into all of this. This is just a very quick overview. The fourth file is a trailheads.geojson file, which are points of access for trailgoers. These are point features for GIS people. This is for any point of access to a trail, and these are associated with the trail segments and named trails. And then finally, we include an areas.geojson file, which is a polygon GeoJSON file that contains polygons representing parks and other protected lands. So notice that these are CSV and GeoJSON files. They're not shapefiles or Excel spreadsheets, and they're specifically CSV and GeoJSON files, and that decision was made deliberately. Very quickly, what is GeoJSON? GeoJSON is a web-native geographic data format. You could think of it similar to KML or shapefile or a feature class. It's an extension of JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So basically, GeoJSON is a little piece of JavaScript that represents spatial data. And this is beneficial because websites speak JavaScript. That's the language that they understand. And so by having our geographic data in a GeoJSON format, it makes it really easy for the web to understand it. Shapefiles are also very hefty. They have a lot of geometry information, and GeoJSON files are typically a lot lighter. So yeah, this means that websites and web applications can read the data format easily. GeoJSON has its own specification for what must be included to make it valid. But fortunately, there are many awesome tools that we can use for getting our spatial data into GeoJSON, and one of them is the OpenTrails data converter, which we will get into more in the next week. But the converter handles the conversion from shapefile to GeoJSON for you, assuming that you have data that is prepared for the converter. CSV stands for comma-separated values. This is it's a data format meant for tabular data, and we can export our data to CSV fairly easily. Most applications have an easy export to CSV, but again, it's not something we really have to worry about because the OpenTrails data converter will handle that conversion for us. Like I said, GeoJSON and CSV are very popular in the web and open data space. And so that's part of why they were chosen to be part of the specification. And OpenTrails uses these formats to reach as many users as possible by providing data that is easily interoperable. So the spec includes 5 separate files, as we saw, but they're all connected to each other and they all rely on each other. This is an important part of the way we think about the OpenTrails specification. We are containing separate pieces of data, but all together, trails, trailheads, stewards, areas, all of this make a park experience complete for a trail goer. So we need to be able to provide information in a way that we can manage it separately and understand it separately for management purposes, but that can all come together in a way that applications and maps can understand and use it easily. So this is a model that was created by the other folks on this little hangout for understanding how all of these different data sets connect to each other. So there's, if you're familiar with databases at all, there's a notion of foreign keys, the different ways that we can connect different data sets to each other. This works in a very similar way, and it's spelled out a lot more explicitly in the specification, which you have a link to, so if you want to go and read a little bit more about it. And also there's the OpenTrails guidebook, which is slightly less technical and goes a little bit more in a narrative way into the data sets. But just very quickly, trail segments are the pieces of trail that, when put together, make up complete named trails. A trail segment has some attributes associated with it. And a trail segment will contain the IDs of named trails of which it is a part. So a trail segment may be a part of Trail A, but it's also a part of Trail B before the 2 trails split off from each other. And each trail segment also is associated with a steward, one specific steward ID. It also contains information on the various physical characteristics of that section of trail, including access. It's one of the primary ones, whether bike, horseback, etc., have access to that section of trail. It's important here to note that currently the specification doesn't support trail conditions at a specific time. So if a trail is closed seasonally or there's maintenance being done, that information is not currently captured by the OpenTrails specification. There may be multiple agencies that are responsible for parts of trail, but the specification asks simply for the primary steward ID for that section of trail. Named trails is a non-spatial file that contains a list of trails. A named trail contains a list of the trail segments that, when put together, make up that named trail. So this may be a little bit confusing, but you have trail segments, and a trail segment can belong to multiple named trails. And a named trail has multiple trail segments that, when put together, make up the whole trail, which is a little bit confusing, but when you start to think about the real geometry of how trails exist in the world, it sort of makes sense. Finally, there are named trails locally that may exist as part of larger regional trails, like the Bay Area Ridge Trail would be an example. So there's also a space in the specification for you to identify that. Also, a named trail will have a steward ID. Trailheads mark the points of access for trails. And a trailhead contains a lot of different things that it relates to. It has the IDs of the trail segments to which it has access. It has a list of the named trails to which it has access. It has the area in which it's located, and it has a steward ID. And all of these things will become clear as we start to dig into our own data and see how our data fits into this whole structure. Because I know right now it can probably be a little bit confusing. The stewards file contains a list of names and contact information for any trail stewarding agency in your area, and this will include your agency as well as you're creating your data in the specification. Everything relates back to a steward. Again, the idea of OpenTrails is that it's focused explicitly on the visitor, and so a visitor wanting to get in contact with a steward of a trail is pretty likely, and we want to make sure that the visitor can have that experience. Areas is an optional file, and the areas refers to parks or protected lands in which your trails might be a part. That was a lot of information, so I'm just going to take a second and let you stare at this adorable photo of puppies, which I love and makes me very happy. So cute! Okay, we can go forward now. So just some quick notes on the specification before we wrap up and ask questions and talk about what we're going to be doing in the next week. The built-in options for attributes for our trails are limited. It's not going to have every possible specification that you, or excuse me, every possible attribute that you might want to have for your trail. OpenTrails contains the attributes that are most relevant for park visitors. As Alan was talking about his experience of getting to the point that we are now with the specification, a lot of decision making went into picking which attributes are going to be the most beneficial. And these attributes, thinking about OpenStreetMap, the attributes in the data also directly relate to attributes in OpenStreetMap, which is very cool for the future if you're thinking about publishing in OpenStreetMap. And it's pretty cool to be able to see trails in OSM. All of that said, we want to know about the attributes that you'd like to see. If there's some major attribute that is very important to your trail network, we want to know about that so we can think about the future of the specification. It is a living document. It won't be edited for another 9 months or so. It's on a freeze, but in the future, we want to make sure that the specification actually serves you, the people that it's meant to serve, in assistance with serving your visitors. The second thing to mention is that OpenTrails is not meant to replace your existing trail data management systems, although you can if you want to. There's nothing saying you can't, but the idea of the specification is that it's meant to aid in publishing and providing information to visitors, whereas there's a lot of data that we keep about trails internally that is directly related to maintenance or stewardship of trails that doesn't necessarily affect the visitor that much. So OpenTrails can exist entirely outside of your existing workflow. But that's totally up to you. You may need to change some internal processes and collect and aggregate some information that you haven't been collecting in order to get your data prepared for OpenTrails. And for each agency, that's going to be different, and we'll be able to help you with that throughout the course in determining what's the best route for you. The third thing to mention is that when you publish in OpenTrails, you still get to maintain control of the authoritative data. When you put your data out there, people can take it and use it, but you still get to decide what data you publish, when you publish, and what is the authoritative data. And you're the one who gets to say what's legitimate. You're the deciders. It's pretty cool. The fourth thing is that publishing data this way means that you get to make and use really cool stuff. We'll talk more about that in the coming weeks, but there's just like all kinds of really awesome tools and applications that you can use when you publish in OpenTrails, which is one of the benefits. In the meantime, be sure to check out opentraildata.org. This is a place where we have been collecting all of the information about OpenTrails, cool projects, interesting talks people have given about OpenTrails, and a ton of information about the specification and cool things you can do with data. Oh, and I guess if you want to do things beyond look at cool stuff, you can learn more about the specification too. So next week, we're going to talk more about converting data, maintaining, and building community around publishing in OpenTrails. The idea around this process is that we want to make it seamless, and we don't want to add a ton of extra work to your workflow. Part of the idea of keeping or of publishing OpenTrails is that it should, and the tools that exist to help you publish, is that it should be easy and effortless, not effortless, but very minimal effort to publish this data. And we want to make sure that we don't give you a ton of extra stuff to do. So a lot of the work that we're going to be doing in this course will help to kind of get you prepared in such a way that to minimize your work in the future. That said, you do have a little bit of homework, but it's pretty not super time-consuming homework. If you haven't done it yet, please send us your trail data as it exists now. We are hoping to, in this first week, conduct an assessment and let you know what you need to do next to prepare your data for OpenTrails, and we'll be able to send that out to each individual agency. And also, if you haven't yet, please fill out our questionnaire that we emailed to you as soon as you can. We want to make sure that that we are tailoring this course to you because you are the goal, and the focus is to make things easier for you. Finally, be sure to take a read through the OpenTrails specification and OpenTrails guidebook, which we've mentioned a few times. This will help you understand the course and the specification way better. Lastly, take a look at this puppy. And it's really cute. I try to put puppies and kittens in these kinds of talks because it's a lot of text and it's a lot of a lot of not pictures, so it's always nice to look at cute puppies. And if anybody has any questions, we are just about to the end of the material that we have today. Just while people are asking questions and they're being gathered, this is a photo in the Red River Gorge in just outside of Lexington, Kentucky, and which is an extremely beautiful place. If you ever have the opportunity to go out there, I would definitely suggest it. Ryan, do we have any questions? So we do have a question from Matt in Marin. He said that he looked at OpenStreetMap last week and that there are a lot of illegal trails on their preserves that show up in OpenStreetMap. The question was how putting their trail data in the OpenTrails specification will help them combat illegal trail proliferation in OSM. And he's wondering if others have that problem as well. So that is the weird and interesting thing about OpenStreetMap, is that it is crowdsourced, and people can add data as they see fit. But as such, you can also go in and edit and prune that data and provide updated data. So by publishing in by publishing in OpenTrails, we are creating data that is ready to be imported into OpenStreetMap. And the import process, we can get into that in the coming weeks if people are interested. It's a little bit complicated, but ultimately, as the authority on the data, you have a very good case for saying that your information is more valid than the information that exists in OpenStreetMap right now. And that is, again, a longer process that we can talk about, but simply by publishing in OpenTrails, you know that your data is prepared for import should that process and should that time come. So I hope that answered that question. Were there any other questions, thoughts, concerns, comments, technical problems? So Bern from the Bay Area Ridge Trail Council asks, so for the folks who work in agencies that host sections of the Bay Area Ridge Trail, which is one of those larger trails, the whole trail naming issue is going to be big for them because they named all of their big sections back in the olden days, that's a direct quote, without much notice of the actual park assigned names. So we have a huge number of sections that don't match up with the names that are provided by the local agencies. And that's interesting to the specification, and feel free to interrupt me if I'm wrong, but the specification as it stands now has the ability for you to add multiple names for the same trail segment, or excuse me, multiple names for trails. So in the trail segment, a trail segment can relate to multiple named trails, as we saw. But then the named trails can also be part of other named trails. So if a named trail has, if a trail has several different names because it's a part of different other trails, then there's management for that inside of the specification. But another sort of weird and cool byproduct of the specification is that it kind of starts these conversations among agencies of how are we going to manage our data, like how, and you start to notice the things that maybe are out of sync with related agencies and can share data easily between agencies. Ryan, Jeremy, Alan, did you have any other thoughts on that?
No, you summed it up really well, Lizzie. There are a couple different ways to do it, and we can help sort of figure out the best way given the situation. But yes, trail segments can belong to multiple named trails, and furthermore, named trails can actually be part of other named trails. And so yeah, there's some flexibility in the spec there, but that is a situation that we explicitly tried to accommodate in the development of the specification. And we're happy to sort of help with the actual implementation of that as well with anybody on the course. So great answer, Lizzie.
Cool, good. One more thing about OpenStreetMap from Bern. It says, in OpenStreetMap, I'm looking at the Ridge Trail section in the Presidio of San Francisco that is incorrectly characterized as footway. The alternative is cycleway, but I'm not sure what that means. So OpenStreetMap is a little bit strange, like I said. It's a specification, or OpenStreetMap is a big data set that was started in Europe when there was no map data in the UK at all. And the whole naming conventions or types for different areas in OSM, whether they're points, lines, or polygons, are based on a series of key value tags, which I can send some information out about OpenStreetMap a little bit later. But there's a whole massive wiki, the OpenStreetMap wiki, that talks all about tagging, and there are conventions as to how different things are tagged inside of OpenStreetMap, whether that's like a footpath, a cycleway, a variety of other options. And Bern, we can talk more specifically if you're interested in learning more about OpenStreetMap. We can point you at resources, and the same thing for anybody else who's interested in OpenStreetMap. One question from Matt in Marin says, in Marin there are lots of public lands with shared boundaries and shared trails. Is there an alternative to listing a primary steward for one segment? Can we run trails right next to each other or overlap them? I think that Jeremy or Ryan or Alan, would one of you mind jumping in and talking about topology and this issue about multiple stewards and multiple shared boundaries?
Sure. Yeah. It's so in the specification currently, it is true that it's a single sort of primary steward for a trail segment, but we are that may change in the future. We're not sure yet. We may that may become a list of stewards with one designated as the primary. And we, in our platform, we actually are supporting multiple stewards for a given trail. We will just have to sort of work through the detail that ends up surfacing in the specification. So it's not a perfect answer yet, but I think we're excited to sort of work through that for some specific cases and figure out what the best way is to sort of manage that data and then publish it out into the OpenTrails specification in the best way possible. I'm not positive that will be multiple trail sort of repeated trail segments, but we will certainly put some thought into that and come up with a recommendation in the short term, and then a little bit of sort of longer term thinking on that.
Yeah, and just one reason why that we focus on one steward when in the development of version 1.0 of the specification is because ultimately this is a set of your data that is intended for visitor use. And so when presented with this information about who's responsible or who visitors can get in touch with if they need help or assistance or just more information, it's important not to overwhelm them or confuse them or give them too many options. So for the time being, it's just been a clarifying approach, like give the steward contact information that you want visitors to get in touch with. But as Jeremy said, that may change in the future, and there may be in a future version of the specification, there may be a way to accommodate multiple by elevating one as the primary for visitor contact.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your questions, everyone. We're just about out of time. If you have more questions or you're curious or any thoughts at all, feel free to send us emails. We will be, once you send us your data, we will be emailing you. Oh gosh, I'm going to just hop right back so you can see my face here. When we get your data, we'll assess it, go through it, and then send you an individual email about the sort of next steps and the things that we think should happen next. And we will also send you links to everything we mentioned today, as well as links to the slides that I showed and feel free to share those with whoever you want to share them with. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate your time and excitement and energy, and we're looking forward to next week. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you soon.